One. One. Go. Two. Go.
A famous boxer once said, everybody seems to have a plan right up until the point where they get punched in the face, and everybody thinks that they work hard until you actually see someone who does something day in and day out. Now, my venture to Ghana, most people will recognize the country for having great abilities in soccer, but not only do athletes have talents with their feet, but they also have talent with their hands. These are the Kings of Jamestown, and one thing that I don't think a lot of people know is that the boxing culture in Jamestown, Ghana could be just as famous as any soccer player or artist that you might have in the country. I got a chance to sit in on one of the training sessions of one of the youth boxing teams, and to be able to see some of the best athletes that work hard no matter what the circumstance is was something that reminded me a lot about the things that I learned growing up. Oftentimes as a kid, I was told that you have to work twice as hard to get half as much, or what my dad used to say, which got on my nerves, was that I had to work until things were second nature. I used to think that was something that was specific to my upbringing, but I think that's something that's so cultural that it becomes just part of our everyday lives. Despite the fact that borders separate myself from this boxing team, the idea of work ethic, the idea of being able to put in and time out to something that you want and putting into your craft, I don't think it gets lost on either one of us. There might be different ways of how that shows up, but I think being able to watch the Kings at work is something that I could take home with me and never forget. Okay, so I want to yap for a second. Most of you have already heard about the Blazar lenses. You've already heard about the Blackmagic Pyxis 12K, probably from my channel or somebody else's. But I want to talk about trying to make a one lens film, and I'm going to call it that. I'm going to call it a film. Also, just the idea of capturing instead of worrying about a very hard set and complex narrative, and getting out and shooting a little bit more than trying to pontificate on shooting. But also, where this whole thing is going with YouTube, because a lot of content's probably not going to change, but some of the things that I'm doing now is going to change in appearance and how things end up on this channel, but we'll get there. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed the first part of this thing. What I'm trying to do is incorporate some more creative projects into this channel while also talking about things that I'm interested in, like technology. I bought the Blazar Remus lenses on Black Friday sale a couple of years ago, and I hadn't really made a video about them since. I include them in videos every now and again, but I really don't talk about them that much, mostly because I feel like everything that needed to be said was kind of already said already. This is sort of the tail end of the Ghana files, where I had a bunch of videos I was making based on my trip in West Africa, and this one was a really cool one because it was kind of impromptu, not planned, and I didn't expect to be here. Mr. Newports, who follows me on Instagram, actually had a cousin who lived in Jamestown, and he knew some of the boxers that were there, and invited me to go and sit in on a training session to go film, record, and capture some moments. And that's kind of all I wanted to do from a story perspective. I wanted to capture a couple of moments, and I didn't want to bring too much, so I only brought one camera and one lens, keeping in mind that those two things individually are pretty expensive, but I wanted to keep things minimal. And what using one lens and what camera actually does for you is it kind of eliminates the idea that you have a safety. If you have to recompose your image, you can't do that by changing your lens. Your focal length has to be your feet. If you want to get a close-up, you got to move in, and if you want to get something that's going to be a tight shot, or you want to get something macro, hopefully you have some diopters on you, or you're just going to have to deal with having a minimum focusing distance that isn't that big, and also only having one certain look out of that one lens. But what ends up happening is that you end up getting a lot more shots on the day. Most of this video is just for me to yap about the lenses and yap about the camera combination, while at the same time showing off all the footage that didn't make it to the intro. But one thing that I did find is that I had to be creative in how I positioned the camera and how I actually positioned myself, instead of changing out lenses and saying well, I'm going to go to a wide shot, so let me go to the 45 or the 32 or whatever the wider angle lens of the Blazar set is, which would take a little bit of time while I'm shooting by myself. And that's something you might want to keep in mind as well. When you're shooting by yourself, using minimal lenses actually might make a lot of sense and help out a little bit. Now, the pay the cost to be the boss still exists there, because the Blazar Remus lenses don't have autofocus. So I probably would have got more shots on the day had I had an autofocusing Blazar lens, which I fully understand is already out now, and I don't have a choice but to get one now. That's also a joke. But what I'm trying to say here is that you do have to slow down. You do have to think about what you're doing because you only have one focal length, and that focal length does have some characteristics that are unique to it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I accidentally shot in 12K, which has a couple of implications to it. For one, yeah, the memory takes up a lot. I only brought one hard drive, and that shoot alone took up like a quarter of my 4TB hard drive. It probably wasn't a good idea. And the second thing is that the highest rolling shutter readout on the Pyxis. So there's a little bit of a fix here. If you go into DaVinci Resolve, you go to gyro stabilization, you're going to be able to mitigate some of that, but it is something that you want to be aware of, and also totally did it by accident. Now, I will say the dynamic range, the color, and the detail coming out of that 12K looked amazing. It just came at a cost that I wasn't really prepared for from a workflow perspective. I also want to say that this still isn't necessarily a spec review of the Blazar Remus lenses, but there is like one little niggle with it that I don't really like that much, and it's going to be the distortion, and not necessarily the barrel distortion. I love barrel distortion in anamorphic lenses, but this one has so much distortion around the edges that it creates a little bit of a fishbowl effect, which means that if things aren't center frame, things are going to look a little bit wonky, and when they are center frame, they look really cool. However, on DaVinci Resolve, I did use something called lens distortion where I could actually correct for some of that just to make sure that things look a little bit better. I also want to talk about, because with every shoot, there are things that I screwed up. Now, if someone was watching this right now and they said, hey, this looks really cool, but it would have been great if you had better sound design. Well, guess what? I forgot to bring a microphone. I use the onboard microphone. I forgot to bring mine, left it inside of the house, left without it, try to be minimal, and I forgot one of the most essential things in the filmmaking, and that's sound. And that's the part where I screwed up. Visuals looks great, but yes, I am trying to go on this journey where I want to get better at sound design and just sound in general, especially when we talk about the end of this video and how important sound actually might be for the next 12 months for me, quite literally. One of the things I also wanted to talk about was actually while I was capturing things, and it had to do a lot with work ethic. I don't know if you guys know this, might be based on my name or what I've been talking about recently, but I come from Ghana, West Africa, and there is a culture, and I think for a lot of people that are diaspora for other countries, it's not just an African thing, but work ethic is pretty much a pillar of how you're raised. There's a lot of things that my parents used to say. My dad used to tell me to do things until it's second nature, or I have to work twice as hard to get half as much, and all the other stuff. And it really instilled around, like myself, as someone who's magnificently melanated and also a man in North America, that there's not necessarily a replacement for working hard. And I think when I was a kid, I used to think that that was a bad thing. I used to think that was something that was destructive. But I think kind of coming on the other side of it in my 30s, a lot of the dividends of like those things that you learn culturally came up and have become a benefit. And where I'm going with that is kind of the future of this channel, because I think everybody follows along because they want to see your favorite creator on a certain journey. And for a long time, mine was pursuing freelance work and doing fitness stuff and working with different brands and freelance. And like I said freelancing twice, but there's a new journey. And what this journey is actually came from doing videos just like this and talking about camera gear. And I know there are a certain contingent of the community that don't want to hear about camera gear. They don't want to hear about gear reviews, or they're tired of talking about gear and all the other stuff. But from that, and if you're watching this, I'm on a plane for it right now. I am working with a store called Excellent Photo, and they're a store based in Montreal that, had I not in a random live stream on the Nikon ZR with Brandon Talbot mentioned that I came from Canada, I wouldn't have been offered the opportunity to shoot a mini doc series for each individual province and territory of Canada, which means that there are 13 documentaries that may come out in the next 12 months. And when I say that out loud, that is very stressful, it's nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting at the same time. But where I'm also going with that is the idea that you cannot do work outside of YouTube, outside of gear reviews, I don't think is true. I think what ends up happening is that when you're competent and passionate about something, other opportunities bring themselves up. And this just ends up being one that I'm going through right now. There was kind of a culture around YouTube not being real filmmaking. However, most of the filmmaking opportunities I've been given have come from YouTube, particularly talking about camera equipment and how I use it and where I like to go and where a camera actually takes you. It took me to Ghana, West Africa, and if I didn't have this channel, I wouldn't be able to afford the trip. I'm gonna be in every single province and territory over the course of the year, and there are other jobs, and you might see the behind the scenes, or it might be members only content, where that all came from people watching this channel. And that, coupled with the idea that you work hard at things if you want them. You do things until they're second nature. I've posted almost 700 videos in 4 years. There comes benefits on the other side of that. Now, that doesn't mean don't take care of your body, don't take care of yourself for the people around you. But what I'm trying to say is hard work is paying off. And it's going to be a position that I don't think a lot of people will understand. Some things are going to come with vitriol and hate, and I guess that's a way that you know you're doing something right. But basically what I wanted to say was I tried a one lens film in my home country, and I got to actually see something that wasn't part of the stereotypes. We didn't go into the villages and shoot safaris and stuff like that. I wanted to shoot sports. And I wanted to shoot what was unique in terms of sports to an individual place. And I was able to do that. And I think that's really cool. Now, I did use the one LUT that I use for the Pyxis 12K all the time. And I'll work on a pack with a color grade in the next couple of weeks. But if you guys want to support the channel, I do have a digital store. I don't know if you guys know this, but most of these videos actually aren't sponsored. Yes, access to equipment is great, but I can't pay my rent with the fact that I'm borrowing a Fuji camera or something like that. If you guys want to do that, that's more than fine. If you want to join the membership, where I will put some of the behind the scenes things, for example, the color grading tutorial for this video is going to be in members only. You could join the members only list, or if you just want some free stuff, you could join the mailing list. I have a couple of digital products coming out and a couple of things that I want to show you guys, and the only way I'll be able to communicate that without worrying about the YouTube algorithm is going to be that email list. So if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave that in the description down below. But basically, I wanted to say I had a lot of fun on this trip, and have a lot of them coming up, and most of it's because of you guys. So thank you for that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. What's that thing Danny Gravert says? I love you.